The Fire Within Us, Book 2 of the Soulbound Saga, by Decima Watkins. Decima Watkins. All rights reserved. This story is mine. Every word, spell, and spark. No stealing, copying, or dragon taming without permission. Chapter 1. Ashes and Awakening. Decima Wren stood at the edge of the cliff, every nerve alive to the roar of the storm and the relentless voice of the sea. The wind snatched at her cloak, twisting it around her like a dark banner, tugging at her hair until loose strands stung her cheeks. Salt spray lashed her skin, sharp as memory, but she barely noticed the cold. The tempest's power throbbed through her veins, pulsing in time with her heartbeat, demanding to be set free. The world before her was all motion and fury, waves smashing against jagged rocks below, each impact echoing up through the soles of her boots. Above, the sky boiled in bruised purples and midnight black, torn open by lightning that, for one wild heartbeat, illuminated the horizon, an endless, hungry void. She breathed in, tasting iron and rain, the air so charged with magic it prickled across her tongue. She tightened her grip on the runed hilt of her dagger, fingers numb, the metal etched with her grandmother's protective glyphs. Each inhale filled her lungs with the storm's wildness, but each exhale left a hollowness she could not explain. The ache of Porthcary lingered in her chest, the feel of moss beneath her feet as a girl, the quiet wisdom in her grandmother's voice, the sense that the woods themselves were watching over her. Out here, exposed on the wind-lashed cliff, she felt those old comforts stripped away, replaced by something older, rawer, rising like fire beneath her skin. Beneath her boots, the stone vibrated, not just from thunder, but from something deeper, a pulse in the rock. She dropped to one knee, pressing her palm against the slick, rain-warmed surface. The granite seemed to breathe beneath her hand, alive, restless, its secret heart shifting in its sleep. For a moment she swore she felt the memory of ancient fire stirring far below, a whisper, not in words, but in the prickle at the back of her neck. A sudden crack split the air, louder, closer than thunder. Decima's breath caught. The earth shuddered beneath her. Pebbles rattled toward the precipice and vanished into the churning sea. She looked over her shoulder, and there, cutting through the rain, silver-blue scales gleamed. Sarenfay, her dragon. In that instant, all fear fell away. Sarenfay stepped from the shadows, immense and sinuous, wings half-folded in a sheltering arc. Each scale shimmered with ancient wisdom. Her two-toned gaze held storms and memory. Decima's fingers slackened. The dagger fell and landed point down in the softened earth, forgotten. What use were blades against a legend? Instead, she met Sarenfay's eyes and let the bond between them speak. "You called," the dragon's thought voice thundered, reverberating in Decima's bones, low as distant thunder. Decima's heart leapt. She hadn't meant to summon her, yet something deeper, something wilder than her own will, had pulled Sarenfay here across leagues and lightning. I didn't mean to," she said, voice rough from cold and awe. "But the power, it's waking, on its own." Her hands pressed to her chest as if to quiet the wild, riotous magic swirling inside her ribs. "Then let it wake." "You were born for this," Sarenfay replied. Decima shivered, but it wasn't from the wind. She drew a shaky breath, felt the storm itself pulling at her, wild and electric, full of possibilities. She stood, rain slicking her hair against her skin, clothes sticking to her like a second layer, and stepped to the edge of the cliff. This was it, the moment her grandmother had warned her about. The moment she'd been running from for years, but not anymore. She lifted her arms to the sky, feeling the wind thread between her fingers, icy, hungry, alive. Magic gathered at her fingertips, a pulse that threatened to crack her skin open from the inside out. For years she'd forced it down, kept it small, but now it swelled and surged in time with the thunder. The storm's song was in her blood. First came a tremor, so soft she almost mistook it for nerves. Then the air snapped bright and sharp, the charged tang of ozone, the scent of something ancient stirring. Lightning tore through the clouds, striking close enough to send a shower of sparks leaping across the cliff face. The energy hit Decima like wildfire. Her breath turned to steam, hair lifting with the charge, every muscle thrumming on the edge of release. She let the power rise. Blue fire spilled from her palms, ribbons of light dancing in the rain. She moved her wrists in careful, trembling circles, letting the magic paint sigils in the air, old shapes. Her grandmother had taught her in whispers, for protection, for calling, for memory. Each glowing rune shimmered against the storm-dark sky, burning for a breath before fading to steam and mist. Where the spellfire struck the stone, rain hissed and leapt, clouds of vapor swirling at her feet. The cliff seemed to come alive, rock pulsing in recognition, the heart of Wales itself beating under her boots. For a single, breathless moment, Decima felt herself open to it all: wind, storm, sea, the endless memory beneath the land. The magic was a living thing, and she was part of it, frightened, exultant, trembling. And then, something shifted at the edge of sight. A flicker, almost lost in the rain, a shadow between her and the next flash of lightning. Not a seeker, not even Serenfe. Something older, watching. Decima's skin prickled with sudden cold, a chill that went deeper than rain. She blinked, and it was gone, but the sense of being seen, of being marked, lingered, heavy as prophecy. Her triumph lasted only a breath. From the dark tangle of trees at the cliff's edge came the slow, relentless drum of hooves on slick stone. Decima spun, magic still hot in her hands. 4 riders advanced through the gloom, hooded, bannered, the silver trim of the witches' council, glinting even in the storm. Seekers. She knew the way they moved, trained, tireless, bred to hunt and silence witches. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Serenfe shifted behind her, scales bristling, a low warning rumble curling up from deep in her chest. Decima could feel the dragon's anger, her readiness to defend, to destroy. It was an echo of her own. She drew the magic back, flames dimming to embers in her palms. But the circle of power she'd conjured remained, a ward of blue fire that ringed her feet, silent and watchful. The lead seeker halted just at the edge of the ward, lightning catching on his polished mask. "Decima Wren," he called, voice clipped and hard. "By order of the Witches' Council, you are to cease this display and surrender for questioning." Decima's jaw tightened, a lifetime of warnings pressed against her lips. Hide, run, never stand alone. But she squared her shoulders. "This cliff is no less mine than the sea," she answered, voice rising above the gale. "I stand here by right of blood and bond." She glanced at Serenfe, wings spread, a living wall of power beside her. The Seekers. Staff gleamed at its tip, a crystal etched, with runes for ice and binding. He slammed it to the ground, and a ribbon of cold blue energy snaked toward her ward. The power snapped against her circle, shattering in a spray of sparks, as if the magic itself refused to bow. The councilman hesitated, his confidence flickering for the first time. "Retreat," he muttered to his companions, uncertain. "Report to the council." His fellows wavered, eyes shadowed beneath their hoods, but at a gesture from their leader, they wheeled their horses and melted back into the dark. Decima stood unmoving, pulse still racing. She met each gaze as they passed, her chin lifted. "Let the council know this. Magic cannot be contained by fear," she called after them. "I will not be bound." Rain lashed the empty cliff as the seekers vanished, their torches flickering once before the storm swallowed them. Only then did Decima let herself breathe. The ward at her feet guttered out, leaving the ground warm and humming. Her chest rose and fell, not just from effort but from relief, pride, and the sharp edge of fear that lingered like a warning bell. She stooped to recover her dagger from the slick earth, the old runes now glowing faintly with spent magic. For a moment she just held it, rainwater running down the blade and over her fingers, feeling the weight of her grandmother's legacy settle in her palm. The urge to run was still there, hardwired, from years of hiding, but something had shifted. Something deep. No longer just a witch on the run. She was standing her ground. Serenfe approached, her great head low, nostrils flaring as she tasted the air, storm and magic, and the iron tang of Decima's adrenaline. The dragon's eyes were soft with pride and wild with a secret knowledge. Something old and unspoken passing between them. Decima pressed her hand to Serenfe's scales, the contact grounding her, warm and electric at once. "You have begun," Serenfe murmured, her thought voice gentler now, as thunder rumbled low over the water. "And now the world will remember." The words struck Decima deeper than any wound. She stood a little straighter. The cliff, the sea, the sky, they felt like hers now, bound by oath and memory. She let the rain wash over her, head tipped back, letting the magic soak into her bones. It wasn't just power, this was belonging, a fierce reclamation of what had always been hers to claim. She looked inland, squinting through the sheets of rain as the storm began to ebb. Far off, beyond the wild edge of the woods, torchlight flickered, a scattering of tiny, uncertain flames moving through the darkness. Not seekers, she thought, not yet. But something else was waking in the world, drawn by the same call that had brought Serenfe to her side. Doubt tried to crawl back in, cold and familiar. Was she enough? Was she ready? Her grandmother's voice echoed in memory. You are the storm, child. You are the one they'll fear and the one they'll need. Decima closed her eyes, listening to the storm's slow retreat, the final drum of thunder, the hush of wind as the rain slackened. The world felt suspended like a held breath. Dragon and witch stood together, on the edge of everything. The storm's heart finally eased, thunder rolling away toward distant hills, leaving only the gentle patter of rain. The air was thick with ozone and something new. Promise, danger, the certainty of change. Decima lingered at the cliff's edge, watching the gray expanse of sea stretch out to the horizon, every sense alive. She wiped water from her brow and felt a laugh. Unbidden, slip from her chest, a note of disbelief, of triumph, of raw relief. For so long she had hidden what she was. Now the whole of Wales would feel the ripple she'd sent through the land and sky. She reached for Serenfe, tracing the ridge of scales along her jaw. Did you know it would feel like this? Decima whispered, her voice almost lost in the wind. The dragon's golden eyes gleamed. No one ever does. But it is yours. Let the storm remember you. Decima let her eyes drift once more to the woods. The flicker of distant torchlight was gone, but a deeper presence lingered, like the echo of a voice she had not yet heard, calling her onward. For a moment, she thought she saw a shadow at the forest's edge, something impossibly tall and thin, watching from between the twisted trees. It vanished when she blinked, leaving behind only the ache of being seen. She shivered, not from cold, but from the awareness that her first step had changed everything. The world was awake now, and so was she. She lifted her chin, feeling the power of her birthright settle on her shoulders. Not a burden, but an inheritance. She turned her back on the sea, the storm fading behind her, and strode toward the hidden paths that would lead her, and Serenfe into the depths of Wales. Each step away from the cliff was a promise. She would not run, not from magic, not from her enemies, and never from herself. Above them, the sky glimmered with the last faint pulse of lightning, a blessing and a warning. Together, dragon and witch left the cliff behind, moving toward a world that would never forget this storm, or the girl who dared to stand in its heart.